So now we're going to look at how our cells know which proteins to make, what type and how much. And the answer there is to do with this thing called a gene. And you'll see I've got it written here in two different places. And the reasons for that will become clear in a minute. So we said that a gene tells our cells to make a particular protein in a particular cell in a particular amount. So far, so good. But how does our cell know that? And the answer is, well, it's kind of like a code. Okay, so in a gene is also a stretch of DNA or a segment of a chromosome. So a chromosome is a bundle of DNA. And the reason why it's a bundle, of course, is that we can imagine DNA like long strings. They're actually long twisted up helixes, but long strings. And you would know that if you had all these long strings just hanging out, they'd all get tangled up and that would be really inconvenient. So our body bundles the DNA. Humans have 46 chromosomes. We inherit 26 from each biological parent. So a chromosome is a bundle of DNA containing genes. So one of the interesting things that humans found out when we started studying genes in more detail was that a gene or the bundle of DNA that makes up a gene all sits on the leg of the chromosome like this. So here's one gene for something, here's another one up here. I could draw that on as another set of lines. But we can also imagine genes or visualize genes as a string, okay? And the string is made up of these things called base pairs, okay? So DNA is a twisted helix, okay, made up of a sugar phosphate backbone. Okay, and that's not essential that you remember, but if you do, that's awesome. And some base pairs. And they are the rungs, okay? And our base pairs come in two sets. So I don't know if you can see, but I've done one set like this. And I've done the other set like this. That's because there are 4 base pairs and they occur in 2 pairs. So A always matches with T and G always matches with C. Okay, and it's useful to remember that. And a good way of remembering that is that A matches with T, so that's adenine and thymine. And G always matches with C. And I remember this because this is my initials. And I'm sure that you can look at this and see that when you think, oh, well, you know, this is a GC combo, I'm sure that you can see why that is the most hilarious joke you're going to learn in level 1 science. So the base pairs, A matches T and G matches C. And that's always the way. And you might be wondering, well, you know, this is all well and good, but it doesn't get me any closer to knowing what the hell's going on with these proteins. And the answer is that proteins, so remember I showed you a collagen example before, and we talked about the muka inside the harakeke. So the answer is that proteins are made up of little blocks. And you can imagine them a little bit like a Lego. So we build our proteins, okay, out of blocks. And I hope you can see that this one that I've just invented, it doesn't actually look anything like a protein. Doesn't matter. It does something in your body. So proteins are made of blocks, and those blocks are called amino acids. But you can imagine them like little Lego blocks. And how do you know which Lego blocks to put together to make the pirate ship? Well, the answer is you would look at the instructions. And so how does our cell know which proteins, which amino acids to string together to make the protein? And the answer is they look at the instructions. The instructions are the DNA. So the DNA is a set of instructions for a protein. And it does that because these base pairs, okay, these bases tell the body which proteins to make. Now, it's not obvious to see how these would turn into so many. I mean, there's 22 essential amino acids, and there's thousands of proteins. And the answer is that it's not just one. It's not just that A gives you this amino acid and G gives you this amino acid. The answer is that they work together in groups of 3. So each set of 3 base pairs equals 1 amino acid, and each gene equals 1 protein made up of some amino acids, however many, a few, 1,000, okay? So the DNA comes in a long stretch like this. It has a code at the front to tell your cell to start making the protein. It has a code at the end to tell the cell to stop making the protein. And in the middle, it has these base pairs. And each set of 3 base pairs says, make 1 amino acid. And the whole string, the whole bit of the code, tells it to make 1 protein. So if we look at the chief things you need to get from this. DNA is a twisted helix. It has base pairs in it. The DNA is the set of instruction for proteins. So each set of 3 base pairs means 1 amino acid. A set of base pairs, a set of DNA, tells us to make 1 protein. Our DNA is bundled up into chromosomes because having long strings hanging out is inconvenient, and those are found inside our cells, inside the nucleus.